Well, that's crazy loud. That was pretty wild. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Hello. How's that for crazy for you? Grab your popcorn, fill in. Andrew Zundel and myself are here. We're going to talk about what we're seeing in the housing market and the interest rates.
Yikes.
Andrea,
hello. Thanks for having me.
how are you? How the heck are you?
I'm doing very well. It's been a good week, even, despite kind of a bit of market volatility. Despite that, over the last few weeks, I'm doing awesome.
What are you talking about? Market volatility?
I know.
The 6.97 interest rate? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's precisely what I mean.
What the heck
Especially off the
happened?
heels, I'd say in January, we were celebrating because rates had dropped and we were locking people in the 5s again, which was amazing. And then this.
Yeah. What the heck happened?
That's a really good question. I mean, let me just say my disclaimer is that I'm not like a market expert by any means on like predicting what's going to happen with rates and understanding exactly why, mortgage rates respond in the way that they do. In fact, Guild's senior VP of capital markets has sent emails out to the company reminding us that predicting interest rates is quite literally a monkey's best guess. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate that because, I think we've seen throughout history that people make these really grand predictions on where things are going to go, and people are always wrong. so let me just say that I don't know exactly. I'm still kind of trying to follow along, but I would say the main things that impacted rates last month are, the last round of inflation data was not super favorable. It wasn't like crazy, but it wasn't the type of cooling that the Federal Reserve is looking for. Because we've had really great numbers for months, and then we get just one kind of funky jobs report. That was one of the big things that impacted mortgage rates, and then some inflation data that was maybe a little bit higher, and the market pretty much flipped out.
Right.
So yeah. I'd say the jobs report is probably one of the big pieces that impacted us. So I don't know if you are, you want me to touch on that at all.
Yeah, let's touch on that. What the heck happened?
So, I like to get a lot of I like to go to a lot of different news sources, so I can kind of pick my course. So I have looked at many different sources, and I think what happened is that the jobs data that came out showed that there was actually an increase of 517,000 jobs, and that's not good for inflation because really, as weird as it is, it's like we want to see higher unemployment. And what instead we saw is that unemployment is now at a 53-year low. Yeah. So that was a big part. But I think that part of the trouble with this, though, is going back to the multiple sources of news or information, is that there's a seasonal adjustment factor in January that's pretty massive that I think really skewed the numbers. And so I think there are many that are arguing that 517,000 number that came out was not exactly accurate. So it's kind of like working through that. But I think the reality is that a lot of us, I don't know if you can if you would agree with this or not, but I think I felt like I kept hearing about these massive layoffs in January. Like it seemed like a lot of news sources were talking about all of these layoffs that were happening. So it was super interesting to hear that, there was actually a pretty big increase in jobs. But anyway, many are arguing that the jobs report that's coming out this coming week, I think it's released on March 10th, that might be more of a strong indicator of the job situation. So we'll see what comes of that.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It seems like maybe it's just kind of isolated or insulated at this point to the tech sector.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting because even within the tech sector, it seems like maybe, some companies aren't laying off. Like Apple, for instance, is not seeing huge layoffs.
Yeah.
So it's
kind
kind
of I think part of the seasonal adjustment touches on the a lot of hiring that happens during the holiday, and then a lot of firing that happens in the new year. So I think that's skewing numbers a bit.
right.
But
yeah, which happens. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think I'm super curious to see what the numbers look like toward the end of next week. And my hunch is that it won't be as extreme as we just saw, and hopefully we'll see mortgage rates respond favorably.
Right.
Travis,
Yeah.
you know this about me, but I am the eternal optimist.
Yes, you are. That's so true. And I love that. I appreciate that about you very much. But definitely, it's like,
Yeah.
But you know what? It's interesting because the market is going to do what the market's going to do. And what's interesting is that people sometimes, you might say, "Oh my gosh, rates are at the 7s or the 8s," and people are like, "So what?" You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't know. What are you saying in terms of applications, which is always an early indicator, right? Like, always how the last couple of weeks been for you?
Well, I mean, so touching back to January, when we saw rates dip, we definitely saw an increase in buyer activity. Now, again, it's like, is it because rates have dipped, or is it because people were like coming out of the Christmas coma and they were ready to just do something? But we were also, I mean, I think you would agree with this, we also started seeing more multiple offers coming on the scene. And so we're still experiencing that. And so again, I don't know, is that in response to the improved interest rates, or is that just kind of the nature of the new year and like new inspiration? But to answer your question, where are applications now? I mean, it seems like it's similar to that. I mean, there's definitely a lot that's percolating. So for me personally, it might have cooled a tiny bit, but I mean, there's still people who are wanting to buy. And so I think people have just maybe gotten a bit more used to where rates are at, because the reality is rates are what they are. Can't really do much about it. And I think there are also people who I think are just coming to the realization that it's impossible to time the market.
Right. Yeah. I had some first-time home buyers come out of the woodwork this last week, and they're like, we're just going to get in. Like we're tired of waiting, and we've kind of sat by the sidelines for a year, and so they came out and actually got under contract this week, and they were like, let's go.
So that's awesome.
I was proud of them. I was happy for them. Sine, who's listening, Sine down in the Bay Area is hope you're feeling well. Hope you're getting better. Hope that you are healing well. Sine just went through a big surgery this week. Just want to say hi and give her some love. So let's talk about an article here that highlights some of that. Can you see that okay? How's that for you?
Yeah, I can see it.
Cool. Market collapse again. Recovery talk premature after rates surge past 7%. Well, they went over 7% for like what, an hour?
Yeah. I don't know. The language always makes me chuckle a bit, because it makes it seem so extreme.
Right.
And market collapse, I don't. Yeah, that just seems, again, so extreme.
A little clickbaity for you?
Yes, extremely. Yeah.
Well, they got to get the clicks.
Yeah, so they do.
Let's see if the article matches the title. So inflation pushed more rates back to normal ticket highs economists are warning the resurgence in borrowing costs will deal another blow to the precarious market.
Mm-hmm.
Driving home sales to a new lows and improving recent recovery would instead be a short-lived mirage. What do you think of that? Huh? They use mirage, precarious, resurgence. Somebody got their thesaurus out.
Yeah. Yes, they did. They did.
Yeah, somebody used ChatGPT.
Yep.
Hi, Constance. Constance Bradley joined us here. She says, oh, I don't know why it's not showing, but she says, timing the market is impossible. Love your positive perspective, Andrea. Yeah.
Thank you.
You two are awesome. Yep. Okay, so the average rate of the popular back above 7% this week for the first time since October.
And so I can speak to that. And Travis, I don't know. I think maybe your internet connection might be a little bit dodgy.
It is.
Uh-oh. You sound like a robot to me.
Oh my God. Oh no.
Oh, I hear you.
Yes.
Well,
take it away, Andrea.
I do want, yeah, I will, because I want to address the 7%. It's real. Like rates did go up above 7% again, and that was a bit of a I don't know, that was definitely a bummer direction to go, but at the same time, I mean, again, it is what it is, but I also know this isn't where we're going to stay forever. So I think a lot of people are setting their sights on, getting in while they can, and knowing that they'll be able to take advantage of a refinance when the time comes. Because when this is what I talk to clients about often, honestly, right now with every single pre-approval, I'm telling people that this is not going to be your rate for the next 30 years, even though, yes, you're signing up for a 30-year mortgage. This is really your rate for right now. And as soon as rates drop, which we're expecting they will in the next 1 to 2 years, you'll be able to take advantage of a refinance at that point in time. So, I think that article that Travis pulled up is kind of, it's really just meant to elicit fear. And Travis, you're back.
Yeah. Hey, I'm back. I'm alive. I live. So good. It says in the article, the drag from very high interest rates is again becoming clear, says Adams, noting mortgage purchase applications plummeted 44% year over year in late February to the lowest since 1994. I mean, I know you weren't even alive in 1994, Andrew, but if you had been,
no, I wasn't.
Are the numbers even at that level? What are you actually seeing?
And I don't know. Like, I can't speak to those exact numbers. I mean, the thing is, though, like, if we look where the market was a year ago or 2 years ago, it was crazy. So the demand was so incredibly high. So I feel like, I guess maybe it is a quite a bit lower from last year, but that's also like in relation to just like an explosion of buyers. So, that's kind of like, it reminds me of an article where I saw that foreclosures are up 150%. Right. But it was like, compared to a year ago where nobody was foreclosing. So I don't know, it's all very relative. Right. But, I think one thing I do want to touch on is that, so while we are, close to that 7% mark right now, and I do not think we're going to be there for very long. And again, maybe it's just the eternal optimist in me, but the biggest determinant in mortgage rates is inflation. And so we're expecting another CPI report, so the Consumer Price Index, which is basically a measure of inflation. That there's a report coming out, I think it's March 14th. But basically the way that the CPI is measured is it's looking at it's comparing year over year numbers. So it's looking at February of 2023 versus February of 2022. And so I think that the silver lining, and this is really what I'm kind of setting my sights on, is that for the next few months, the comparison numbers are really bad, which is really good for us because if you look back at May of 2022, the CPI increased 8.6%. And in June of 22, it was up 9.1%. So if we're looking at, so let's say let's look at the May 2023 report, we're comparing against May 2022, our numbers are going to look pretty good comparatively. So I guess I'm just sort of anticipating that we're going to get positive news in terms of the direction of mortgage rates and with inflation cooling.
Where'd you find that, Andrea, the CPI?
If you look at, you could just Google.
Or if you want to pull it
up. If you just Google CPI May of 2022.
Got it. I'm on it. There we go. Oh, yeah. Yeah, but okay, so this is where it gets tricky, right? Because 2020, if we all remember, May 2020, CPI was negative 18.9%, right? Remember that? Like, we were not leaving the house. We were seeing people with plastic bags over their faces in the grocery store. Like that was,
yes.
It was a different time. So a year later, let's find May 2021, it was up 13.2%. Right?
Yeah.
So we're still a net of minus 5% from that 2020 loss.
Yeah.
And it's hard, right? Because, okay, so let's go, even if we go all the way back to 2019, where, energy costs are down by 0.5% or whatever, that's really hard to compare because of what was going on then. Like, it's all very, I get that it's very tricky, and I understand that people are, trying to do their best to make sense out of it. But we just went through kind of a crazy, unheard of time economically,
Yeah, perhaps the craziest.
Yeah, you're right. It's hard to say, right? We're a little too close to it now, but it is it's very hard to look at it and say, hey, where are we at comparatively,
Yeah. Well, and I like to look at what other people are saying, others who are a lot smarter than I am. Mm-hmm. And, I saw, I believe it was like a Kiplinger article and Barry Habib, or people like I look to Barry Habib quite often. And there was another, I can't remember the article I read, but basically, a lot of people those news sources are anticipating that the CPI numbers are going to continue to show improvement. Airfares declined for the fourth consecutive month, so that's good. New vehicle price increases have slowed, so that's good. I think that there's just some general numbers that are referenced as like there is slowing happening. So that's definitely a good indicator. So again, I just like extracting those good little data points to think that that's
like the price of bananas is fairly flat.
Hey yo.
Price of bread, price of chicken is way up, but some of that was, remember, we had that craziness where people had to be 6 feet apart, where we've also had the avian bird flu, which wiped out entire flocks. But it's pretty interesting numbers. Okay, here's one that's going to be painful, everybody. Eggs.
Yeah.
What's going on with eggs? But that is not necessarily due to demand or supply. Well, it's on the supply side, right? Because egg producers have had to kill off entire flocks because of the bird flu. Like it's been
Yeah.
pretty dramatic for them. Pretty serious. Now, of course, the price of beef continues to go up. We had that major spike. Remember, we had the kind of after maybe things settled down a little bit, and then we had that pandemic hoarding. Remember the price of meat because ground beef, for instance, doesn't last very long. So what you're talking about is the fact that people have to produce these things. Well, they weren't allowed to go to work and they had to be 6 feet apart. And at that point we were missing, I don't remember if we were missing 21 or 14 days if we had a fever. Remember that?
Yeah, I think, it was at least 14.
It was at least 14. So that's going to cause a backlog when you're processing something like ground beef. So it makes sense. Price of milk flattened out a little bit, but it's coming back up. Here's a tough one though. Gasoline.
Yeah. Although we are seeing that come down, which is wonderful.
That is nice. Yep. Especially for travel, as you noted, and travel costs. But
yeah.
Here's another question. Constance asks, gotta love the clickbait, of course. Thank you too for giving real advice and exposing the headlines, plus the relevance, rock star professionals in the industry. That's very kind, Constance. What is your best advice to buyers and sellers, Andrea, when the rates are 7%? Do you sell? Do you buy? What do you do?
It's a hard one because I think for sellers in particular, if you're a homeowner, you refinanced your home 2 years ago and you are sitting at a 2.875 interest rate, that's a pretty hard one to want to part with. Just to get maybe, one extra bedroom or maybe a slightly larger yard. So I can see the reservation in that. But there are also instances where it's like, no, you're having another baby and you have to have another room for your family or whatever the case may be. So I think it's like from the homeowner perspective, I guess I sympathize with the struggle. I'll just say that. But I think that, you just have to really weigh out, like, is it worth it to you to sell? You'll probably make quite a bit of money because you have so much equity in your home. So then you'd be able to tap into that and leverage that to buy another property. So I think that's the upside. And then again, going into this new property, knowing this isn't what you're signing up for 30 years, this is for a year, maybe 2 years, and then you'll refinance and take advantage of rates wherever they land. Many are thinking in the 4s to 5s. So that's one of the situations. The other is the first time buyer. And I think like the honest conversation that I have with a lot of people is like, okay, so you're a first time buyer. Why would you sit on the sidelines waiting for rates to come down when we don't know, we don't know exactly when that's going to be. We think it's going to be in a year or two, but you continue to pay somebody else's rent. Why not get in, take advantage of this market and this opportunity and start paying your own rent, paying your own mortgage, building your own equity, taking the rate for what it is. I mean, I think when I bought my first house, I can't remember what our rate was. Like, I have no idea. I don't think it was particularly good. It just was what it was. And we were comfortable with the payment.
Yeah.
So I think that's the conversation I have with buyers more is, are you comfortable with the payment? Let's figure out what that comfort zone is. But, also touching back on Constance's question of like, are there other strategies available to help with that 7%? Like maybe reduce that. But yeah, there are. I mean, like in our, Travis and I had another, what do we call these? Zoom meeting? I don't know what
This is a live stream, Andrea. Live stream. We're live on YouTube, live on Facebook, with me going from a hotspot from my phone because Charter.
Yes. Good. Listen up, Charter.
Listen up, Charter Spectrum.
Live stream. On our last live stream, we talked about temporary buy downs, because I think that's still a strategy that I think makes a ton of sense for people, especially in this high rate environment. So, I mean, Are you okay if I touch back on that, Travis?
He's always okay with that. Are you kidding me? I think
Okay.
a lot of people don't know this,
Yeah. So I think one of the most effective ways to impact your monthly payment, because that's what most people are concerned by, is the monthly payment. The higher the rate, the higher your monthly payment.
Mm-hmm.
And then that really further reduces your purchasing power. But for somebody who's buying a property, they feel like, they really, really don't want to exceed a certain dollar amount per month. But that interest rate that we're pricing at today just takes that payment a bit outside of their comfort zone. Enter the temporary 2-1 buy down, and that's a fantastic option, because what it is it's where the seller subsidizes a temporarily reduced interest rate. So we have a 3-2-1, a 2-1, a 1-1, but let's just say a 2-1 buy down. So it's a 2-year term. So your first year, your interest rate is reduced by 2%. In your second year, your interest rate is reduced by 1%. And so while that may not sound like a lot, it is. It's a significant monthly savings. And so, depending on the loan amount, it could be anywhere from $200 to $500 a month for the first year, maybe $600 a month, again, depending on the mortgage. And then in that second year, it could drop to $200 a month savings. And then in the third year, you would go back up to whatever today's interest rate is, but it's fixed. It's not an ARM product, the adjustable rate mortgage. So the reason this program, I think, is fantastic, because it's meant to, it's temporary. And so it really just buys you some time before the opportunity presents to refinance.
Yeah. This is historical interest rates. And I love the buy down. I think clients are using it very effectively. I think that they're, instead of a price reduction, use some seller concessions to lower the rate. And we've also locked in some of our listings saying, hey, we're going to contribute right away to a rate buy down. And instead of a price reduction, it's just a great opportunity for them. So let's Sine,
I want to add to that, Travis, because I think that you're wise to do that. And ultimately, I guess it could be up to the buyer if they'd rather knock 10 grand off the price versus taking the credit to use it toward the buy down. But the reality is that 10 grand off the price is only going to change the payment very minimally. $50, $100 a month, maybe, if that. Not even 100, let's say 50. Whereas if they take the 10 grand and use it toward a temporary buy down, that's going to make a very significant impact to the monthly payment.
Totally. Yeah. Roger that. You're right. It's all about monthly payments.
Yeah.
But looking at this, and I'm talking a little bit with Sine, who's responding via text, which is awesome. Look at some of these rates, 18%, 18.44%. People were still buying homes.
Yeah.
They had to, they need to. She said when they first bought their first home, it was 18% in 86.
Yeah.
And so, yes, we just went through a period in history that is, this is, so I just zoomed in 2015. This is as low as it gets. And that's because
that's in 2015.
No, I zoomed in starting at 20. Now I'm starting at 2010, but 2021, January 2021 was about as low as it got ever, since they've been tracking the data.
Yeah.
That's, so that's a matter of perspective, right? Let's just remember, and that's why did we do that? Well, because we were worried that the whole thing was collapsing.
Yeah.
The whole style.
I tell people that was not a sign of health. That was a sign of unhealth. And so while, I think there may still be people hoping that they can buy a property and get into the 2s and 3s rate wise, I think that you will be waiting a very, 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 very long time.
Right.
maybe forever.
And those interest rates weren't free. Number one,
Right.
it wasn't ever zero. Number two, it made for some craziness, right? Because people were doing things that may have cost them more money, like waiving inspections.
Right.
In order to win a multiple offer situation, people were doing some crazy things, which was not free, and in the long run may have been more costly. But we were fighting, like there were so many people fighting over one home that
Yeah.
people were waiving all these contingencies and all this stuff, or overpaid way over the appraisal. That
Yeah.
that free money wasn't free. It definitely came with a cost. So in some
Yeah.
regard,
Well, and drove up, drove up housing prices all over the nation significantly. So yeah, there's been a lot of just like whiplash that's happened over the last few years. And we're trying to get things straightened out. I feel like we're getting there slowly, maybe, right?
we are. In the long run, we're going to be okay, says Keynes. And
Yes.
Keynesian economists, in the long run, it'll be fine. We know we aren't there yet because things aren't fine. We just sit back and eat our popcorn. We'll be okay.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
plus I think what I've noticed about the market in general is just that it's filled with knee-jerk reactions. So like the second there's bad news, like there's just the knee-jerk reaction, prices shoot in one direction, rates could go up. But then like when there's good news, there's also a knee-jerk reaction where it's like, then we go in the opposite direction. So it's like, there's nothing that's really like subtle. It's just this constant propelling in one direction or the other with a lot of speed.
Well, that's our clickbait. It's the time we live in, right?
Yeah. Right.
There's people on YouTube who are producing videos every week talking about the housing market, and we call them the crash bros. Because every week they're like, it's crashing, and look at their slashing, and even I used fire in my thumbnail for this video because it's just kind of where we're at. It's a matter of kind of standing out maybe, and some of the sensationalism that used to be at the newsstand or in the grocery checkout line is now traveling faster. It's going faster because of the speed of information, right?
Yeah, it's not just limited to the National Enquirer anymore.
No, it's not. It's also your Facebook and your what is that next door neighbor.
Oh yeah.
That one's fun in Ashland, isn't it?
I don't know. I unsubscribed. So
yeah. Smart. You're smart. Speaking of Ashland, Constance is listening from Oregon, the mountains and the trees.
Yeah.
Hey, Constance. Yay, go Oregon. We're big Oregon fans.
Oregon.
That's right. We are Oregon. So this article that Forbes put together for us is definitely, it's clickbaity, but it's clickbaity throughout. If they're nothing, if they're anything, they're consistent. Comerica forecasts existing home sales will drop by more than 20% this year, pushing prices, which have already started to fall, down nearly 10%. I don't know about you, but I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing prices maybe a little bit.
It's just, maybe, but it's like, it's so hard to imagine that we'll see that kind of a drop with how much demand there still is.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. There's still a lot of demand for sure.
And what's that?
Go ahead. I'm slow. You go.
Oh, no. I'm just thinking, I know that there are a lot of pre-approved buyers who really want to buy something. It's just that there's not enough supply. There's not enough houses available for them to find what they want. So it's not for lack of interest, it's for lack of availability. So that's where I just struggle to really like gravitate toward believing the 20% drop. I don't see how that's possible.
Right. Well, the Case-Shiller Home Price Index, which is probably the largest and broadest national survey, if you will, says 5 straight months is about 4.1% below its record high in June. So that's the reality.
Yeah.
Like, we look at all this data and all this talk in this article, but what we're really talking about is we're at 4.1%. You know, prices are down, but that's our collapse. That's the clickbait title. They use the word collapse, but we're at 4.1% below. That's not a collapse, is it?
Well, no, but then again, it's also like, but that's comparing to the unhealthy surge in appreciation of nearly 20% nationally, which is absurd. Like, that's not healthy either. So like, comparatively speaking, yeah, we're maybe it's not as aggressive as it was last year. Thank goodness.
Right. And it's regional, right? Oh, look, nice little video. See more clickbait, but world is there. This is the top 20 major cities with monthly home price declines. Oh my gosh, they're on fire. 1.9%. That's $4,000. That means that the median price, which I don't know about you, but I have a little bit of a problem when people compare median price month over month or year over year. Median price is such a manipulated statistic, right? Because median means the one exactly in the middle of all the homes that sold that month. Well, maybe that month, Aunt Linda needed to sell her trailer for $5,000, and the month before, Uncle John sold his $15 million ranch, right? So that's going to shift the median dramatically. Just one sale in a region is going to. So that's a really, I get fired up when they start talking about the median home price. But these are the top.
I think looking at wasn't Phoenix one of the hottest housing markets in the nation? I thought they showed appreciation of around 20% last year, I think.
Yeah, let's look it up. Phoenix. Oh boy, how do you spell Phoenix? Look it up. Let's see what it has to say. Redfin, of course, is going to take us there. So in January 2023, according to Redfin, home prices were down 4.3% compared to last year. Okay, well, let's look at the last 5 years. Look at that.
Yeah.
That's 5 years. So the median, I'm not a big fan of it. Oh, well. All home types, you can't turn off the median. Everybody tracks the median. Can we just use the average? But anyways. So 2018, you could get yourself a home in Phoenix. What is that? $236,750 was the median price in 2018. And then the peak median is up at $470. Pretty wild. Now it's all the way down to $404.
Yeah.
So
that's where I just feel like it's all relative. Like, we need to know what we're comparing against. And when we're comparing against this massive acceleration of values, I don't think it's like a fair, fear-based.
Doesn't seem like a good plan to compare.
Yeah.
In January 2018, interest rates were 4%. So if you would have bought a home in 2018 in Phoenix, 4%, 236. I mean, you're still sitting on quite a bit of equity, I would say.
Yes. Yep.
Same thing in Phoenix or Portland. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I'm not a Portlandite or a Portlander, but I like it. It's not, people talk about Portland's on fire, and yes, it was. Parts of it were on fire, but it's not that crazy. Yeah.
It's still a pretty wonderful city.
Agreed. So a lot of these are these metro areas.
Yeah. So I
New
don't,
York,
I think that the concern that the market is crashing based on, home prices really dropping, I just don't think that's not a fair assessment.
what about days on the market?
Yeah. What are you seeing? That's not really my wheelhouse. I'd love to know that though.
Yeah, well, so I just clicked over Phoenix, right? And this is part and parcel with prices and interest rates. In April
Yeah.
of 22, the where does it say? April of 22, the median days on market, again, the median was 20 days. 20 days on the
Yeah, which
market.
was crazy.
That is crazy. And so now we're up to 71 in Phoenix. We can actually check out our little area too, but this is, this is a perfect indication of homes are what, 3.5 times longer on the market, which is
Yeah.
not necessarily a bad thing.
Well, and then I don't know, I can't help but wonder too, like how many houses are there to choose from? Maybe they're just like, oh, I would imagine there are fewer homes that are on the market, which kind of messes with numbers.
Totally. That messes with the numbers too, for sure. Right. Because as we talked about, you're locked in at 2.25%. It's like, oh, well, I'm not going to go anywhere. Why would I?
Yeah.
That makes sense. Why would you? Let's look at number of homes on the market. I don't know if they have a current number or not. Oh, they wanted an address. Never mind there. Redfin, never mind. Demand, maybe. Homes sold above list price. Look at this.
Oh,
It's still 10% of the homes are sold above list price, which is down 33% year over year. No, it's a collapse. The sky is falling.
right. Because homes are still being sold above list price, but just a smaller percentage.
Sale to list price, 96.6%. That's about what we're seeing in Oregon too.
Yeah.
I think that number is a little bit different, but it's about the same. Homes with price drops, we're probably seeing more than 39%. But this does represent some seasonality. And
right.
Where we are is, because you can see the seasonality. Our curve runs backwards from Phoenix. Their market heats up a little bit more than ours, and the rest of the time. This is kind of interesting. They're saying people from the Northwest, more than 823 people searching to move to Phoenix or searching for it.
They want a little more sunshine, I guess.
They want a little more sunshine. They want a golf course. They want to get out.
Yeah.
Kind of an interesting one.
Travis, I'm curious. So surely your clients voice concern, with rates when there's news that rates have gone up. I'm just curious to know what's your response? Like, how do you navigate that fear, and where do you go for your news and information?
Well, I go to you and other lenders who are, tracking the rates daily and paying attention. And I like sources that are so sensational. I like, Barry Habib is one. I also like Bloomberg. I tend to like really boring stuff.
Yeah.
Forbes, because it's not so clickbaity per se, So that's where I get a lot of the information. But I say the same thing, which is really it comes down to your payment, your monthly payment. For those of you who have to finance a home, pick that number and stay under it, and we'll figure out how to get there because it's doable. For instance, recently, had some first-time home buyers, and we needed help with closing costs, so we worked that into an offer. We came up with a strategy. We said, this is a number we have to hit. So maybe we asked for more closing costs than we need at first, and then we meet in the middle. Or, you know, there's what I like about the rates going up and homes being on the market long is the return of negotiations.
The return of what?
The fact that you can have negotiations. You can actually like have a conversation about it instead of, oh my gosh, we have to be there in 20 minutes. We need to be the first ones there. Then we don't want to be the first offer in. We want to be the fifth offer in, and we want to have this escalation clause, and we need to do this and this. It's like it's I hear you. There's a certain level of health that has returned as part of this quote collapse unquote.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think that you're right. That does. I think especially highlighting the power that has returned to the buyer, whereas they were like pretty much stripped of any kind of negotiation power, 2 years ago. It was more, do you want this house as is or not? And are you going to waive the appraisal and all contingencies and give me the money?
Totally.
So you're right. I mean, it's like, I think buyers do have a lot more room. So the fact that homes are staying on the market longer, I actually see that as a good thing, because sellers, if a seller has their home on the market, they want to sell it. And so they're probably going to be more easily enticed to meet you somewhere in the middle and help a buyer, achieve whatever it is they're after. So if they're looking for a lower monthly payment, I bet a seller is going to be more willing to help that buyer get that lower monthly payment.
Totally.
Or the buyer is wanting a slightly reduced price, I bet that seller they've had their house on the market 70 days, they're probably getting antsy to sell it.
Totally, 100% agree. So this is Ashland's market trends. Look at this. The median sale price in Ashland is 29.1% higher year over year.
Yeah.
Why? Because of this. Because 17 homes sold in the month. So it's down 45.2%, which means that this number is really volatile.
Yeah.
Like, yes. The median number is is just super volatile. The median days on the market is much better. I mean, it was cray. We were down to 9 days on the market in March of 2022. In Ashland. It was
that was March of 22?
March of 22.
Yeah.
9 days on the market. Yeah.
There was a reason that I felt a lot of stress during that season.
Yeah, because it was unhealthy.
Bananas.
Yeah. 8 days on the market in April of 21. 8 days.
Yeah. No, it was nutty. One news source that I really like, I think you're aware of this, but for anyone else who's interested, is Mortgage News Daily.
Oh yeah.
I like checking that out regularly. So I just feel like it's not the sensationalism like you referenced. I think that Matthew Graham is often who is the writer of the articles. And I just feel like he gives a really this is how it is perspective. There's nothing like, I'm freaking out, market's crashing, sky's falling. It's more like, this is what's happening. This is why it's happening. He says it in a very like digestible manner too, as opposed to like some articles I read and my head kind of spins on like, what are all those acronyms? What is all this data? I don't get it. I should have paid more attention in my econ class. Yeah. But I really like the Mortgage News Daily.
Yes, agreed. Look at that. Look at the difference in the title, right? Rates move nicely lower heading into the weekend.
Yeah. Like that seems very subtle.
Yeah.
And I like green. I like seeing green.
Right. It is nice to see green on this site. Yeah. It's not a decisive victory, right? Which is a great point. And then he goes on to say, well, why? Because the bond, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, which is something interesting to think about what has gone on in like the 10-year bond over the last couple of years and where that's gone as well, right?
Yeah.
So government bonds are interesting, but
Yes.
but
Yeah.
it's
And
mhm.
I think that something that a lot of people get confused about with regard to interest rates is like, you know, people, so the whole US economy knows when the Fed raises the rate. And I think that as soon as the Fed raises the rate, the average consumer thinks, oh man, that the sky is falling for mortgage rates. So if the Fed raises the rate 0.5%, then mortgage rates have risen 0.5% too. But that's not accurate. I think what's really important, just, there's uh, mortgage rates definitely have a lot of different things that impact it. But I'd say just most simply, inflation is like mortgage rates follow inflation. So when inflation is really high, mortgage rates are really high. When we get good inflation data showing that the inflation is cooling, mortgage rates also drop accordingly. And so I think that's just a really important distinction because again, it's like, yeah, we're expecting there's going to be some more Fed rate hikes. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're expecting that mortgage rates are going to follow suit. In fact, we could see mortgage rates drop a little bit in response to the Fed raising the rate because it's like so mortgage rates are impacted by inflation, and then they're also they directly follow the bond market. So those are just like two, for anyone who wants to kind of geek out on where mortgage rates are at, I would encourage you to check that out, to just be aware of what's happening with inflation and what news sources are saying about inflation, and then what's happening with the bond market.
Totally. Yeah, great point. And if you don't want to nerd out, you can call one of us. We'll tell you exactly what's
Yeah.
happening. We track this just because I know it's as much a hobby as it is a necessity, right? You want to stay informed
Yeah.
so that we can serve our clients well. But it's also like it becomes like, ooh, what's happening today? And I get it, but you don't have to go for the clickbait titles. There are other great sources.
No.
That MBS highway component is good. I do like what Barry Habib does and his
Yeah.
point. And that's where actually I learned, how the inflation data is really impacting what we're seeing. What do you
Yeah.
think? Yeah. What do you think about as we are approaching? I know it's tough to imagine, but we're coming up on an election cycle again. It's here again. What do you I mean, we don't ever really talk that stuff ourselves, and I don't ever talk about it with clients. But what about the impact of that on the rates and the independent Fed? What's your take on any of that? Do you have a take on any of that?
Quite honestly, I don't. I really don't. It's I guess I haven't spent much time researching that because I'm more in the I feel like I'm more in the day-to-day of tracking like what's happening, why is it happening, looking more just like a few months out. So I honestly haven't spent much time about the implications of the election year. Although I feel like, weren't we just in that? How are we here again?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I feel
And
like it's been the twilight zone. We've been in the twilight zone for the last few years.
totally. We really
But
have.
I will add though that so I don't know what, I don't have an opinion on that. But I do feel like things are going to improve. So, it'll be really interesting. I would encourage anyone. I mean, I think a lot of people are curious at this point. It seems like a lot of people are aware of what's happening with inflation, what's happening with mortgage rates, what's happening with the Fed funds rate. But I guess I'm just super hopeful that we'll continue to see this slow improvement, which I think we have. We've been having like a nice disinflationary time. And yes, this last month it ticked up a tiny bit, but I think we're going to come back and continue our slow journey south.
Yeah. So this is
what do you have
interesting.
pulled up here?
I found a chart that says historical mortgage rate, analysis regarding mortgage rates just before and just after the election. So this is an interesting snapshot. I would wonder about a 2-year run up or whatever, but the only time it's really significant was in 2008.
Yeah.
But as you'll remember, in 2008, we had some other problems going on too.
Yes, we did. Yeah, actually, that's kind of surprising to see how minimally the rates were impacted in general every year.
They try to point out that the Fed is supposed to stay out of it, right? The base rate. So they're supposed to stay out of that primarily. And the 14-year term is, a Fed chair is kind of interesting. I wonder how many of these years Alan Greenspan was the guy.
Oh,
like
yeah,
almost all of them.
Probably.
Remember Alan Greenspan? Remember that guy?
Yeah.
See, let's see if we can find a tenure of Alan Greenspan. People have done everything out there, right? Alan Greenspan and mortgage rate chart. That out there. Oh no!
While you're looking this up, I can't help but notice your sensationalist title for this live stream of mortgage rates shoot up.
Shoot up! They shot up. Yeah, do you like my nerd too? My little nerd.
I do like it.
What? Oh, here we go. Here's an interesting little graphic. This is and of course my internet is really slow because I'm amazed that it held on this whole time. I am from my phone doing a hotspot, which is pretty darn awesome considering. Okay, here we go. This is a cool chart. Check this out. Oh, come on, you can do it. Oh, it's gonna. There we go. Whew.
Yeah.
There's Alan Greenspan in the middle.
Big chunk of time.
Yep. Paul Volcker. He was the one who had to go through it.
Is that just showing what the Fed funds target rate was at the time?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And then here's where we got into trouble, right?
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Quantitative easing. Look at what we did. How can we expect not to have any repercussions from that too?
Right. Yeah.
That's
the good thing, and again, maybe my optimistic outlook, but I feel like we're through hopefully the worst of it.
And even if we aren't, October 1979, Paul Volcker raises the Fed benchmark rate by 4 percentage points in a single month.
Oh my gosh.
4 percentage points. Now, I understand that home prices were lower back then. I get that. I've heard that argument. I've heard that comment. I've heard people say, oh, it wasn't as big of a deal because, what was the average price of a home? And sure, there's some of that. But that was that's a huge move. That's a huge move. I don't care what industry you're in, what you're talking about. 4% in a month is a lot. And then, of course, Mr. Greenspan, 1987 to 2005. Oh, no, to 2003 must be when he was done. That's a long time.
I love that you got to be in your bonnet to look up Alan Greenspan's term.
He was a benchmark of the Fed. I mean, there was a person who was very independent. I mean, fiercely independent. You couldn't, he was not often condemned, or condemned isn't the word I'm looking for. Very rarely did people ever say he was playing any kind of political party. He was doing what he thought the numbers needed him to do, and he did it for a long time.
Yeah, there was a lot of gray area in there in that graph.
Longest in history. Speaking of a lot of gray area, thank you for dealing with my gray internet, Andrea.
You are, yeah.
And when we get together again, let's hope we're just celebrating the wins for people who are trying to buy homes and sell homes, and who are trying to do things in the market, that they're going to find that this is it's a decent time, and in a couple months or a month down the road, when you and I connect again, hopefully everything is wine and roses, and you'll be even more optimistic then, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, I think that it's going to be very interesting. Like I said, if CPI report that has a lot of bearing on, it's inflation data. So if we see an improvement there, that's going to be good for mortgage rates. But touching back on the CPI report, it's looking back at May of last year versus May of this year. I think that it's going to look pretty good. So fingers crossed.
I'm with you. It's good to see you. Of course, I'll be talking to you soon. If anybody needs help with any mortgage stuff, Andrea is amazing. You can call her anytime. You can find her. Just Google her name on the interwebs. She'll pop right up.
Yep.
Bye, Andrea. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.